Elodie walks down one of the main streets and enjoys all of the people walking around, taking in the sunlight. She sits down on a nearby bench off to the side of the bustling street and continues to observe the people walking around as she swings her legs off the edge of the bench. After about a few moments, a short human with blonde and pink hair, with a dark brown leather armor and green overalls, emerges from the crowd and sits next to her. "Hi," the woman says. She's quite young looking, but upon further observation, it somehow looks eerily artificial. Her voice is a bit too high and a bit too bubbly. Elodie looks over to her and smiles with a hello. "You have pretty eyes. Are they really yours?" the woman exclaims. Elodie double takes and hesitates to respond. "I haven't had a question like that, but yes, they are mine. I appreciate the compliment," Elodie responds. "You're not from around here, are you? Where are you from?" "Oh, it's pretty far. You might not know what it's called," she says, patting Elodie on the shoulder and winking. The girl gets up and walks into the crowd, disappearing into the river of people. Elodie looks at her shoulder where she was touched, and there's a mark. She studies it and gets up to walk in the opposite direction as the woman. Elodie waits for a break in the crowd to fly up to a nearby building ledge to look around. She spots a nearby tower, flies to the top, and sits down in the bell room. No one is present in the tower, and she notices a locked door leading into the bell room that she's in. She sits on one of the rafters and swipes her wing over the symbol, trying to take it off with sage magic to no avail. Frustrated, she closes her eyes. Her vision shifts from the bell tower in the noisy city to a plain, silent white room. Next to her, Elodie sees a black circle etched into the ground. Her corporeal body sitting crossed-legged in the middle, and her eyes closed as if in a trance. A bit outside of the circle, Fuson is fast asleep on the floor, curled up with his wings covering the majority of his face. Elodie herself wakes up Fuson and lets out a deep, nervous sigh. She sits down and leans over, putting her wings on him and slowly nudging him awake. Fuson's head shakes as he wakes up and yawns. He opens his eyes slowly, but when he realizes he doesn't recognize where he is, he gets up fast, catapulting himself up and nearly falling back over from the dizziness. He frantically looks around and sees the circle and Elodie. He takes a couple of steps backwards, hyperventilating. Elodie appears as a silver Valkyrie with pristine gray feathers shining with pearl-colored eyes. She wears a sky blue outfit that hugs her legs and torso. Her feet are exposed, and she wears a golden belt with an insignia and an electrified cloud in the center. Hey, whoa. Is this a dream? Fuson stammers out, grabbing himself as he tries to get a hold of the situation. Elodie sits down in front of him and smiles. It takes a moment, but eventually Fuson manages the courage to settle down, but stays a healthy distance from the Valkyrie. Trapped in an endless white abyss with no other stimuli than each other, a lot of my fans would love this. Are you one of them and caught me while I was asleep? Fuson accuses. You're not trapped, and I wouldn't call myself a fan. Elodie giggles to herself. Fuson doesn't take her reaction well and gets more heated. Fan, admirer, I don't care. Let me out, Fuson sneers. His anger slowly boils up as he realizes there's no air or wind. He flaps his wings and tries to shoot out something, but nothing comes out. The anger shifts and turns back into confusion. He takes another look at Elodie and stares for a minute. A storm cloud, he says, mostly to himself, as he eyes her up and down, ending on the belt. His anger once again flares as he thrusts the edge of his wing under her chin. Why can't I use magic? Where am I? He barks. We're in your head, Elodie says bluntly. Fuson doesn't respond for a moment, trying to grasp what she said. What? He looks back at the circle on the ground and walks over it, trying to figure out how to activate it. He decides to close his eyes. When he opens, he returns back. All he sees and feels is metal, and he turns his head frantically, searching his surroundings before being pulled back into the white room. Hey, why'd you bring me back? He yells. I need to talk to you. I've been working up the nerve. No, stop. Something's wrong. They back and forth. Elodie raises her voice to get the upper hand. It'll only be a minute. Then we can figure it out, whatever it is, together. Please. Fuson is antsy, but stops and nods. Fine, he says. My name is Elodie, she says, as his eyes widen a little. I'm the deity of lightning of this world, as I'm sure you know. These clothes were given to me by the ancestors of your people. I've been trapped in your body for the past couple decades. I'm not sure why, and I only have faint memories of anything before that. I'm able to take control of your body during times when your will is weak or when you're asleep. And I can use my own magic as I wish. But I'm not in control. I'm in this room, only able to see and experience the world from your eyes and senses. What? Fuson asks. I don't know. I wanted to try to find a way out and leave you be as though nothing happened, but I've not found anything, and so I've been working up the bravery to talk to you. Fuson stares at the ground and begins to subtly shake where he sits. You know everything that I've done? You know my whole life? Fuson murmurs. Yes, but Ellidir tries to say, but is interrupted as Fuson goes back into the circle. She tries to follow him, but when she reaches the border, it's as though she hits an invisible wall. She freaks out, trying to get a hold of something, but her wings just hit the barrier where the black border stands. Fuson wakes up, back in the metal box that he was in earlier. He's bound and can't move, and he tries to slowly nudge himself using the air magic to one of the holes in the box. It's extremely small and barely accommodates him, as he floats up and looks through the air hole and sees a forest. Not too dense, but it's not the city they had been in earlier. He doesn't hear much from the outside other than a pair of footsteps. He looks down to see what he's bound with, dark bands surrounding his person. They look like they aren't made of anything but dark magic. He thinks for a moment and starts filling up the box with water. As the water line begins filling up and hits one of the air holes, Fuson picks up the flow rate and begins pouring more and more water quicker. From the outside, a girl with blonde and pink hair, Valeria, notices the water and stops pulling the box to watch. The water pressure rises and rises until the entire air hole is erupting with water and Fuson is swimming within the box, holding his breath. He turns himself into water, and the black binding around him shrinks into an orb and floats around in the water. The water purges itself from the box with the orb into the forest. Fuson reconstitutes himself, but as he forms, the orb turns back into the binding again, restraining him. He sees Valeria for the first time and kicks a torrent of water in her direction as she sidesteps it. Valeria sends forward a streak of shadow that comes from her feet across from the floor and hits Fuson to completely wrap him up in darkness. After a second, the darkness disappears and Fuson is left unconscious. Fuson snaps back into the white room and immediately flies out of the black circle, landing on the floor and shaking his head in pain. "Let me help," Ellidir blurts out. She runs into the black circle and awakens in Fuson's body to see Valeria leaning over her. Ellidir releases a shockwave of lightning around her, which shocks Valeria and knocks her over. What was that spell Aultemus uses? She contemplates, as she starts running back in the opposite direction from which Valeria was walking. Lightning starts striking from Ellidir's body as she tries to figure out how to do the zap spell. Her body becoming lightning for a moment, but it sends her flying into a tree. She gets knocked down, but when she regains her senses, she notices Valeria is catching up. Ellidir continues running and channeling lightning, which appears as a light purple, into her legs to try and run faster. But she's still not fast enough, and Valeria manages to close the distance. Valeria puts a hand out as she continues running, and it begins growing a familiar sage green as it envelops Ellidir's body. She closes her fist, and the glow around Ellidir flashes, and she falls onto the ground unconscious. Valeria walks up to Fuson's body and leans down, running her hand along their face. "What a pretty couple," Valeria giggles as she picks up Fuson's body and continues walking back. Aultemus and the group start approaching the tower. The humming of the Nexus begins filling the ambient noise instead of the wind sweeping over the grass, or the animals moving between the foliage. The soft plains turn into dead flats with striking glow of the blue and purple foliage, giving contrast to the muddy gray ground. The group gets off of their horses and at the border of the transition and leaves them behind in the plains. The tower sits to the right, behind the Nexus, as the group approaches from the southwest. The crackling and shattering sound emanating across the sky has been occurring in greater frequency as the day progressed. As the group starts running toward the tower, they begin to notice some of the energy being funneled into the peak. "See? Someone's messing with it," Aultemus shouts out. "Yeah, I don't know what they're doing in there. It looks like they've repurposed the research center at the top," Zev ponders, looking at Amina. "What are you looking at me for? I'm just here to make sure you don't get in trouble. You figure it out," Amina retorts. Zev giggles and turns to Aultemus. "What do you think?" "I don't know." Aultemus hesitates, keeping his gaze at the tower. The group gets to the top of a hill and manages to get a glimpse of the entrance to the tower. They notice it's been filled with some earth magic, and there are a couple of guards outside sitting down, talking to one another. The group stops running and hides on the opposite end of the hill. "What's the plan?" Siora asks, out of breath. Aultemus stays quiet as he tries to think of something. "Well, this is all you guys, right? I'll let you deal with whatever's going on in the tower," Zev casually exclaims, stretching. Aultemus agrees, nodding his head. "I'll stay and help Zev and Amina. I'd rather stay on the ground," Siora nervously proclaims. Amina listens but keeps to herself. "Alright, well, let's hurry up," Zev calmly says as he finishes stretching. He jumps and perfectly falls into the ground as though it wasn't there. Amina starts walking toward the tower. Aultemus, Siora, and Rilo all glance at each other, confused. "Rilo, stay with Aultemus," Siora quietly requests. Rilo nods and Aultemus turns to them. He wants to say something but is uneasy. The three glance back again, but notice Amina is gone. They run up the hill to see her halfway to the tower, and the guards have noticed. They run down to the hill to catch up. The rock door falls into the ground, and the other 6 guards come from inside the tower to join the 2 outside. All of them fan out and get ready to fight. 4 of the 8 slowly approach Amina, the wind picking up in the direction of the tower, as if it were coming from Amina herself. The front squadron of guards form a backward chevron, as the middle 2 create a large ball of fire in the center, while the 2 back guards try to counteract the wind. The outer 2 in the front line begin helping channel the fireball and direct it forward, as the middle 2 walk ahead. They extend their arms and open their palms, simultaneously releasing jets of fire into the ball, causing it to rush forward and explode into a massive wave, as the 2 outer guards help push it. Siora jumps into the action, stretching out a hand to Amina as a short pulse of energy shoots out and hits Amina, illuminating her silhouette and Siora's outstretched hand. Amina gets enveloped in a torrent of wind around her. Aultemus and Rilo, about 50 feet from her, get catapulted back from the winds, but Siora remains unaffected, being too far from the gusts. Aultemus runs to Rilo and puts up a small rock wall in front of them. The tsunami of fire finally makes contact with Amina's dome of torrential winds and begins to wrap around them as Amina begins expanding the dome around her while running forward. Aultemus and Rilo run out from the back of the wall just behind her as the front 4 guards begin to step back and join the second 4 to form a line. Amina envelops the flames into a dense ball above her as she appears from under the flames with an outstretched hand above her. She lets go of the orb and it begins to fall forward toward Aultemus and Rilo. "What?" Rilo yelps as he sees the orb. Aultemus notices and gets ready to jump. "Why did she do that?" Aultemus yells. He stops running and enters the catapulting stance as he jumps and zaps himself up toward the orb. He rematerializes a little under it, close enough to influence it, and he reaches both of his hands out and begins trying to command the flames. Aultemus closes his fists as he rotates around the orb, struggling, but slowly moves it from his front to his back, spinning it faster as he falls to the ground. He strains, loses his leverage, and feels the orb leave his influence as it's behind him. He curls up behind his arms and tries to make a rock wall in front of him, but the orb explodes in a massive flash as he's sent flying toward the tower. The 8 guards stand ready as Amina rushes toward them. The guard on the furthest left suddenly falls into the ground as Zev springs through it. Zev stomps his left foot and firmly shoves his fist upward as he rolls the ground in front of him, setting a wave of earth, knocking all 7 guards into the air. Amina crouches and grabs 3 that were knocked up, with a gush of wind to the side, slamming them into each other onto the floor. Aultemus zaps into a hole in the door that was left open, as Zev moves onto the other 4 knocked over guards. One of them gets their footing and shoots a stream of fire from her foot to Zev, but he blocks it by extending his back foot forward, countering with a pillar of rock and knocking the girl forward. As the guard falls, she fires another stream of flames from her fist, hitting Zev's left shoulder. He recoils and then suddenly gets hit again in the back by a clean pillar of rock from the ground, knocking him down. Zev doesn't have time to turn around before he sinks back into the ground. A second later, an eruption from the ground sends Zev flying up, along with the first guard who flies back to join his group. Zev is softly caught and brought back to the ground by Amina, who releases a low wave of air, knocking the other guards back down. Rilo flies as fast as he can into the tower while everyone is down. Siora catches up to Zev and begins wrapping glowing vines around the 3 guards in the pile. Zev creates a wall of rock around them and slams it into the group, shattering the stone wall into a dusty pile of rubble.
The other guards try to stop them, but Amina creates a strong gust of wind, pushing them all back. After the wall falls on the 3 guards, one of the remaining 5 manages to let out a streak of darkness along the ground and grabs Amina's foot, dragging her to the rest of them. The other 4 charge Zev and Siora, as Siora tries to shoot the guard who grabbed Amina. Rilo flies into the tower, filled with a cloud of dust and smoke. Not making a sound, he floats around, looking around for any piles of debris. He hears movement and floats over to the sound of moving stones. Aultemus is trying to get up and catch his bearings as Rilo moves some of the rubble off of Aultemus as quietly as he can. Rilo puts a finger to his mouth and shushes Aultemus, trying to make sure that he doesn't make any sounds. Aultemus gets up as quietly as he can and begins moving toward the staircase. Rilo grabs his shoulder, pointing to the door outside with the noise of the battle. "We can't. We have to go up. If you won't come, I'm still gonna go," Aultemus whispers and moves his shoulder out of Rilo's hand. Rilo sighs and grabs his shoulder again. "Wait! You walk too loud. Let me go scout ahead," Rilo urges. Aultemus glares at him anxiously, wanting to move on. He takes a couple awkward half-steps, trying to decide between continuing or taking his advice, but he realizes he's wasting time deciding. Aultemus nervously gets impatient and decides to rush on ahead. Rilo tries to reach out an arm, but it's too late. He starts floating and silently follows, trying not to lag behind. The halls of the tower are dark. There are dim crystals illuminating each dusty, cryptic room. They pass through living quarters, experiment labs, storage rooms, and other research-related areas as they follow the central stairwell and connect the entire building. Aultemus continues to jog forward. The taps of his leather boots echo throughout the halls, shattering the deafening silence that envelops the fortress. Then continue upward until the stairwell stops. Rilo slows down a bit and lets Aultemus gain some ground between them. Aultemus, unaware, continues creeping up the stairs and able to see around the corners. As he gets to the last 3 steps, a guard with the same uniform as the ones outside leaps from the corner onto Aultemus. They tumble down the stairs as Aultemus starts sparking with lightning. Rilo hovers over them as they tumble and continue approaching up the stairs as another guard rushes around the corner looking down. He jumps when he notices Rilo in the air, who launches himself at the guard. The guard envelops himself in fire, and Rilo recoils as he waits for the guard to make a move. Aultemus and the other guard finally stop tumbling down the stairs. The guard begins to spark, similar to Aultemus, and his fists turn into stone, and he begins unloading a series of extremely quick jabs at Aultemus, slowly forming his own arms into stone as well, but getting interrupted from the pain. Breaking his concentration, Aultemus, in the split second between a jab, slams his open palm on the floor, causing it to break, and the 2 fall. Meanwhile, the guard with Rilo pushes out the veil of fire from around him. Rilo rips off his top shawl, splays it out in front of him, and jumps into it, and floats directly through the fire wave. He clumsily bumps into the guard, and as soon as he feels contact, he grabs the cloth and wraps it around the head of the guard. The guard panics and shoots fire everywhere, but fails to land anything. Rilo trips the guard and gets him into a chokehold. After a few moments, the guard stops moving, and Rilo eases him onto the ground. Rilo floats up again and looks down the staircase, sees the hole, and flies to look around it. The other guard is slowly getting out from the rubble and stumbles toward Aultemus, who is lying prone on the staircase. Rilo flies up to the unsuspecting guard and kicks him in the head, knocking him out. Rilo then floats over to Aultemus and helps him up. "Are you okay?" Rilo whispers as he looks around the castle just in case. "What happened?" "Ugh," Aultemus groans, holding his head, wiping some blood from his cheek. I had to blow up the floor because he got on top of me. Let's just keep going." Aultemus zaps back up to the floor above where they came from, trying to get a hold of his senses. Rilo flies up after him. "Aultemus, Rilo starts, but gets quickly interrupted. I don't care. We need to keep going. The other 3 are outside buying us time," Aultemus interrupts. He puts his hand up and creates a small pool of water, makes it spin, and washes his face. After a couple seconds, he puts his arms down and shakes his hands, causing the water to disappear. The 2 walk forward into a hallway that leads to a set of double doors. Rilo gets ahead of Aultemus, who's still a little hazy, and approaches a small crack in the door. Peering in, only able to see portals with a robed man walking into one of them as it closes. The rest of the room seems to be closed off from the outside, and a bright pink light shines from the center. Rilo hovers up to the door and puts his head up to it. Softly landing, he shifts his magic from himself to the door, opting to open it silently and more controlled. Rilo and Aultemus then both peek into the room, more clearly seeing a man overlooking a panel under a large glowing crystal. He has one hand on the crystal, and an energy flows from the nexus into the crystal and into him slightly. After a few seconds, the man takes his hand off and fiddles with the panel as electricity surges into the pulsating crystal, releasing back into the nexus, causing the crackling sound to emanate out from the building. "Come in, gentlemen," Adamar proclaims, waving them in, stepping to the side. Aultemus and Rilo quietly walk into the room. Rilo's careful not to turn his back to Adamar. "Guys sure did a number to those guards, but this planet isn't developed, so I wouldn't expect much from them," Adamar says, as he closes the door behind them. "What do you mean?" Rilo asks, drumming up every ounce of confidence he has. "Wasn't it obvious? I'm not from here. Neither is my constituent you are hunting," Adamar continues. "Unfortunately, I still need him, so I can't give you any information." "Well, then we're at an impasse. I need to get on with this shit. I've run around this entire planet chasing you guys for my..." Aultemus shouts. "What do you mean this planet isn't developed? I don't understand," Rilo questions. Adamar turns to look at Rilo. "You're aware that there are other stars and worlds, correct, human?" Adamar raises an eyebrow. "Yes." "And you're aware our universe has existed forever, yes?" "Well, you couldn't imagine planets such as this one here, that simply started its journey hundreds, if not thousands, of years before yours?" Adamar explains. "I guess. Yes, so these worlds would have much greater expanse of knowledge than yours. Please do not talk of manners your species are not aware of, let alone yourself. Even your tattoos are no mystery to me. They're commonly given to humans who have trouble learning or controlling other forms of magic than the ones they are inclined to at birth." "They do this elsewhere?" Rilo asks, surprised. "Of course! We all abide by the same rules and we tend to reach the same conclusions." "Where's my brother?" Aultemus shouts, cutting Adamar off as he finally looks at him. "For the Nexus, I'm researching arcane magic, and I need to absorb enough direct mana in order to perform another arcane spell, since I'm not an Aphanite," Adamar explains. "Normal people can't cast arcane spells?" Rilo asks. "Correct," Adamar sighs, clearly exhausted by their lack of knowledge. "Well, I didn't know that either," Aultemus blurts out in defense of his friend. "It's difficult, but yes, hence why I need a nexus. It just so happens that my constituent also needs a lot of mana, so I take what I need, which isn't much, and he takes the rest. But you're destabilizing the nexus, and I'm not going to stop going after Trent, so you might as well tell us now," Aultemus says, as he creates a whip of lightning in his right hand. "Stop," Adamar yells. He jumps up and creates a translucent pink shield on his left arm and swats the whip away. However, he swats it toward the panel, damaging a small corner of it. During this interaction, Rilo patted himself, shifting his kinetic magic back to him, and launches himself at Adamar. Adamar catches this and shoots a pink beam out from his left hand and hits Rilo in the arm. Rilo lets out a yell as the intense pain is nothing he's ever felt before, but he continues forward, falling slightly closer to the ground. Adamar now turns to Aultemus, who is going for a strike with his lightning whip. Adamar, raising his right hand that is glowing pink, closes it quickly, and Aultemus' whip disappears in a pink mist. By now, Rilo is right under Adamar, as the man enlarges his shield on his left arm and slams Rilo into the ground, knocking him into the floor. Aultemus then tosses a rock wall at Adamar instantly, who shoots another beam from his right hand, which effortlessly dissolves through the rock and toward Aultemus, who barely manages to sidestep the beam as it nicks him in the side and burns through his scales, stopping the rock wall from hitting Adamar. Aultemus zaps forward and tries to go for a jab at Adamar, but he creates another shield on his right arm and blocks it. Aultemus then grabs the shield and begins channeling lightning, but the energy simmers out instantly and nothing happens. Adamar bashes Aultemus off of him and lifts his left arm to try and hit Rilo as well, but he slips out from under him at the last second. Adamar quickly opens and closes his left palm at Rilo, and a quick flash of pink envelops him. Instantly, the momentum of slipping from under Adamar sends the now pink Rilo flying out from the room, his kinetic magic disappearing. Adamar starts bashing his shields into Aultemus, but Aultemus finds out he's unable to dodge most of the blows. Aultemus zaps around Adamar, beginning channeling lightning from both of his arms as he erupts in a storm, trying to funnel it toward Adamar, who merges both of his shields together to block it. Adamar begins charging forward with his shield into Aultemus, who breaks his lightning spell to back up. As soon as he does, Adamar dissipates the shields and shoots 2 beams from his hands at Aultemus, one hitting him in the stomach and the other hitting his arm. As they hit him, the beams completely burn through him and he falls to the floor. Aultemus, wounded and bleeding from his severe wounds, coughs up blood before blacking out. Rilo flies back in, charging Adamar as fast as he can, picking up a large rock on the way. Adamar notices him fly in and starts shooting him with the same pink beams. Rilo controls himself with his kinetic magic perfectly and effortlessly dodges Adamar's attacks. Adamar puts out one of his hands to nullify his magic, but Rilo lets go of his kinetic magic on himself and transfers it over to the rock. He slides across the floor and tosses the rock as Adamar goes to make the gesture. Adamar then lets go of one of his shields to finish the gesture. However, nothing happens and Rilo controls the rock to hit Adamar in the head, transferring back his kinetic magic to himself. Rilo, now only a few feet from Adamar, catapults forward, punching him in the chest and crashing him into a wall. And when Adamar impacts the wall, a stone tablet is pressed and a portal opens up for just a brief moment. And in that brief moment, Trent is seen on the other side before the tablet crumbles and breaks into a couple pieces. Rilo looks around and sees a couple more similar tablets around the room. He rushes over and presses one, only briefly to see where it leads. The first one does nothing, and the second appears to go outside, right in front of the tower where Amina, Siora, and Zev are found but don't notice the portal opening above them. Adamar finally gets up, shooting beams back at Rilo, who gets hit in the leg to another excruciating hit but wasn't so unaware to get hit again. He rushes Adamar, trying to move as erratic as possible as to not get hit again, but Adamar, really focusing on aiming, gets a couple more hits in. Rilo, unable to think from the pain, finally tackles Adamar, punching him in the stomach and flies him straight into the crystal, as hard as he can. Slamming them both into it, it cracks, and they slouch onto the floor. Rilo uses what strength he has left to fly and kick Adamar into the crystal one more time before falling down. Rilo getting up and limping over to Aultemus, he can hear the cracking of the crystal behind him, as it cascades on its own, getting worse and worse. Rilo pats Aultemus and limps over to the tablet, opening the portal and sending him through as Adamar lands one last shot in his stomach. Adamar lets out a smirk as Rilo falls to the ground, giving him a smirk back. Siora finally sees Aultemus fly limp through the portal as it closes behind him. "Aultemus? What?" she yells as she runs over, hands glowing and looking for injuries to heal. Zev and Amina are finishing up capturing the remaining guards. "Portal magic? We need to get up there and see what..." Zev begins, but is cut off by a large explosion erupting from the top of the tower, completely obliterating the top half of the building. The shockwave throws everyone back, leaving them prone on the ground. Siora looks up in shock. "No! Where's Rilo?" Siora demands, looking around only seeing the still unconscious Aultemus. Amina and Zev get up with a grim expressions on their faces. "I'm sorry," Amina utters, walking up to Siora and placing a hand on her shoulder.